What is going on, y'all? Thank you for joining us here for the Mission Ready Men briefing, where we stand firm in truth, excuse me, faith, family, and freedom, right here on the SHR Media Network. Today is Tuesday, June 19th, Juneteenth to some people, in the year of our Lord 2025. And this show is for those of us who still fear God, love our country, and will not back down from a fight, because the battle that we're in, that we find ourselves in right now, is not just political, but it is spiritual. So we've got truth to expose and narratives to crush. And the fight for faith, family, freedom does not take a day off, ever. And of course, we have the wokies melting down, the deep state lying through its teeth, and patriot warriors who are standing up all across the country. We're getting into all of it and then some. Make sure you're following Mission Ready Men on all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you want to wear the fight, grab your gear at missionreadymen.com, click on Shop 7 Armors, check out all the great designs that we have over there. All right, now that business is done, let's get after it, because we have a lot to talk about. I don't even know if I'm going to get through everything I have planned. Before I get into what I did have planned, I wanted to just mention that Iran has bombed, attacked a civilian hospital in Israel, and it's whatever reprieve, whatever negotiations they thought they were going to do, I think they just sealed their fate. And regardless of what you think about our involvement, whether we should, shouldn't, whatever, the fact remains that I think Iran is about to find out, one way or another. And we'll get into that in a little more detail next time, I think. But and who knows? I mean, things are evolving so quickly. Who knows what will happen between now and then? But I wanted to get into what's going on in this country right now, and that is the Supreme Court just came down with a ruling, a fantastic ruling, that has everybody with common sense, parents, relieved that they came down on the right side of this. And of course, the leftist activists and the American Pravda are all enraged and beside themselves with apoplexy. And we're going to get into what the court said, some of the decisions, and the dissents, and we're going to get into why this battle that we're in is not just a legal battle, but a moral battle, a spiritual battle. And I'm talking about the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision upholding Tennessee's law banning puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries for minors. And the majority ruled that it doesn't violate the Equal Protection Clause, because it doesn't target transgender, quote unquote, I'm just quoting what they say, doesn't target transgender youth specifically, but it applies it on the basis of age and age-based medical restrictions. And Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion, and he says in part that the law is constitutional under rational basis review. I'm actually really surprised. I mean, Barrett and Roberts alike both came down on the right side of this thing, which is remarkable in and of itself. And Justice Sotomayor, she actually, her dissent was ridiculous. And let me see if I have it here. Oh, that's not it. Yeah, here we go. This is part of of Justice Sotomayor's dissent. And she says that Tennessee's law expressly classifies on the basis of sex and transgender status. So the Constitution and settled precedent require the court to subject it to intermediate scrutiny. She goes on to say, and this is where it gets really interesting, the majority contorts logic and precedent to say otherwise, inexplicably declaring it must uphold Tennessee's categorical ban on life-saving medical treatment, so long as any reasonably conceivable state of facts might justify it. Let's focus on what she says right here. The majority contorts logic and precedent. Okay. What is logical about permanently disfiguring, permanently surgically altering children because they want to, because they think they want to? That's just evil. Because these kids, we don't let kids do any number of things. We don't let kids smoke. We don't let kids drink. We don't let kids get tattoos. But we can let them surgically alter themselves. We can let them take hormones that will permanently damage their ability to have children in the future. And who knows what other untold damage is done when we look at a lot of the shooters, especially the gender confused shooters. Who knows what hormones they've been subjected to and what kind of damage that did to their psyches. But it's logical to just let that happen. She's insane. And all of the people who support this madness are insane. The Supreme Court came down on the right side of this by protecting children from doing irreversible damage to themselves and preventing parents from inflicting this damage on their children. And the left is saying, well, it's essential health care. It's life-saving health care. When all the evidence is to the contrary. Subjecting kids to this stuff doesn't make them less inclined to commit self-harm and have suicidal ideation. It doesn't do anything to prevent that. It's not healthcare to sterilize, mutilate, and do permanent damage to children. That's not healthcare. As I said, that's evil. This is about feelings and just doing what makes people feel like they're helping. That's overriding biological facts. And minors, as I alluded to before, minors cannot make life-altering decisions. We don't let them do that in any other arena. We don't let them, like I said, tattoos, smoking, drinking, driving. We don't let them do any of that before they are mature enough to do so. And saying that just because a kid says, oh, I feel this way, well, then we have to go and get you some drugs and some surgeries. That makes absolutely no sense. And Justice Thomas, in his opinion, his concurring opinion, he lowers the boom on these people. He absolutely lowers the boom. Here he is right here. This case carries a simple lesson. In politically contentious debates over matters shrouded in scientific uncertainty, although I think the science is certain, but that's neither here nor there. Courts should not assume that self-described experts are correct. Absolutely not. We saw how the self-described experts were completely incorrect on when it came to COVID. I'll get it right eventually. Hang on. Yeah, there we go. Deference to legislatures, not experts, is particularly critical here. Many prominent medical professionals have declared a consensus around the efficacy of treating children's gender dysphoria with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgical interventions, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. I mean, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. And I have a few other slides, but I'm not going to get into it just because it's it's proving to be a little problematic at the moment. But I urge you to read the decision, read Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, and it's linked in the show notes. Check it out. The conservatives, the right-leaning outlets that have published this story, obviously they're framing it as a complete victory. Well, not a complete victory, as a victory. It upholds sanity, child safety, and parental rights. Because in some states, if a parent doesn't affirm this delusion of their children, that kid can be taken away. And if two parents disagree, there's a couple of famous cases where two parents disagreed, and one parent took the kid to California and proceeded to put the son on all kinds of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. And the dad was just helpless, despite all his legal maneuvering and everything like that. The courts ruled in the mother's favor and did irreversible damage to this kid. And of course, to say otherwise, to say that that's not right, is cruel and regressive, and this ruling is a devastating blow to trans youth. Well, let me just disabuse you of this notion right here. There is no such thing as trans youth. They do not exist. There are only sick, twisted, predatory parents and doctors. That's it. And for the legacy outlets and the American Pravda that actually published this story, they're all for the progressive talking points, the ridiculous child predatory talking points, where they basically just ignore all of the detransitioners that are coming out. Chloe Cole being the most famous and maybe the first one, I think, and medical experts that are saying that this stuff does not work. Jersey Joe says, so if my kid comes to me and says I'm a parrot, Am I supposed to cut off their arms and legs and and hand them a bird? According to based on their logic, yes. Based on their logic, yes. Because these people are affirming this furry nonsense where they're accommodating kids in schools, providing them litter boxes and whatnot. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And just so that we're clear on this, the Supreme Court didn't ban anything. It simply affirmed the state's right to draw lines when it comes to treatment of children. And Tennessee rightly chose to protect children. But this isn't just about a Supreme Court case, because just because the Supreme Court ruled correctly in this particular case doesn't mean that the fight is over. They are going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming for your kids. They are absolutely going to keep coming for your kids. This is not going to stop. This is a speed bump on their way to their ultimate goal. And it's really mystifying to me, because even in Europe, one of the most progressive, liberal places in the world, a lot of countries in Europe are backing away from this. A lot of countries are backing away from this, saying that there is no evidence to suggest that this is actually beneficial to children, to anyone really, because it's not. And so I'm not sure, because a lot of times what you see happen over there eventually matriculates over here. I think the American left is so whacked out, so nuts, that the common sense that Europe is trying to go back to is not going to penetrate the American left. I really don't think so. I pray that it does. I pray that they get a revelation, but I don't know. I really don't know. And we'll just have to see what happens. We'll just have to see what happens. I wanna pivot to something else, some other leftist nonsense, and of course, well, I mean, there's so many to choose from. I shouldn't really say of course, but I'm talking right now about Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar hates the United States. And it's really, I don't really understand. Well, I do understand, but it's just jarring to see someone who fled a war-torn country, came here as a refugee, and there is mounting evidence that she defrauded the country in order to get here. But we'll just put that aside for a second. But she fled her war-torn country of Somalia, and eventually she took advantage of all the benefits that refugees get, went to school, became a congresswoman, and now claims that the United States is one of the worst countries in the world. And my question is, then why are you still here? Why are you still here? I mean, it's infuriating. It really is. But let's take a look at this, because, like I said, just infuriating.
To be coming out of our country. I mean, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world, to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade. It is really shocking, and it should be a wake-up call for all Americans to say this is not the country we were born in. This is not the country we believe in. This is not the country our founding fathers imagined, and this is not the country that is supported by our Constitution, our ideals, our values. And we should all collectively be out in the streets rejecting what is taking place this week.
She is insufferable. She is absolutely insufferable. There have been no violations of anyone's constitutional rights by having the military on the ground in LA during these riots. Because Gavin Newsom could have very easily called up the National Guard and done it himself. But he chose not to. He chose to let the police deal with being assaulted with concrete and scooters from above the bridge and all this, all the fireworks and everything else that they've dealt with. Gavin Newsom could have put a stop to it if he wanted to. He didn't want to. And President Trump learned from his last administration, he's not going to wait for these leftist governors to ask for help. He's going to protect his citizens. And kudos to him for doing it. Jersey Joe, there's the door. And as the saying goes, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Could not agree more. Like I said before, why are you still here? If it's so terrible, why are you still here? Go back to Somalia. Of course, she'll never do that. She'll never do that because she won't be as powerful over there as she is here. Well, maybe they'll prop her up now because they've seen her fight so hard for Somalia over here. Maybe she would be as powerful, but she won't be as free. She's still going to be a woman in a Muslim country, which we'll talk about later, hopefully, if we have some time. But this, like I said, this woman is insufferable because this is the same woman who basically who downplayed 9/11. And when I first heard this was a few years ago now, but when I first heard this, I was ripping. I could not believe she actually said this. And just so that we can refresh our memories here, I'm sure most people who are watching this do remember this, but listen to this madness.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting, and that all of us, they recognized that some people did something and that all.
Some people did something. Yeah, some people did something. Some people slaughtered nearly 3,000 Americans in the name of Islam. Yeah. Some people did something. That was, I was stunned that she actually said that, but that was before I really knew a whole lot about her. Now that I know more about her and what she's all about, it's not surprising at all that she would say something like that. That was one of the worst public statements I think an elected official could make. That was insane. And like I said, now that I know more about her, that's not out of the ordinary, because she is notorious for spouting off anti-American and anti-Semitic rhetoric. She claims that the United States is systemically evil, and she's got it's infuriating that she is so ungrateful that she was able to come to this country and make the life for herself that she now has. She had an opportunity that not a lot of people get. And leaving her political nonsense aside, she made the most of it. Put herself through school, rose to elected office. I personally don't think that people who were not born here should be able to hold elected office on a national level. That's a whole other discussion. But the opportunities that were available to her, she took advantage of. And this is how she repays the country that took her in. The ingratitude is off the charts. Off the charts. And no, America is not perfect. The United States is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Anyone with half a brain understands that. This country was founded by men, imperfect men, run by imperfect men. So no, this country is not perfect. We've made mistakes, yes. But where else could she go and accomplish what she's accomplished? Again, all of her nonsense notwithstanding, just on the basis of her status in this country right now. We all know she's a lunatic, but just from the facts on the ground, where else could she have done that? She couldn't have done it in Somalia. She couldn't have done it anywhere in Europe. Well, maybe now over in the UK, maybe she could have. But even still, she's not she wouldn't be as powerful as she is in this country. Calling the United States one of the worst countries in the world is the height of insulting everyone in this country. Unbelievably insulting and ignorant, just completely ignorant. And I think she knows intellectually that just by virtue of her experience, that this is not anywhere close to the worst country in the world. But she made that statement because she had to, I guess. I don't know. But we can't let people like that get away with that. We cannot let her get away with that. The district that she's in is made up of mostly Somalians, so it's going to be difficult to unseat her, to pry her out of that seat, but we got to try. We have got to try and get her out, because she should not be in that position at all. We have to stand up and defend this country. Defend this country from the enemies without and within. All right. I think I'm making fairly decent time here. I want to plow through some of these other things, but first I want to get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier. And it's more important now than ever, really, to make sure that your dollars go to companies that support what you believe in, that will fight for what you believe in. Your votes right now just aren't enough. We have to participate in what's known as the parallel economy. That's why we switched to Patriot Mobile, because they don't just talk about values. They don't just talk about the things that we value. They back them up. They put their money where their mouth is. A portion of every dollar goes to pro-life, pro-family, pro-freedom organizations and causes. So right now, you can get a free month of service when you go to patriotmobile.com and use promo code Jackson. Or you can call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Jackson. Defend freedom with every call and text you make every month. Switch to patriotmobile.com today, patriotmobile.com/Jackson. Visit patriotmobile.com today. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men Briefing on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe, who's in chat. Thanks, Joe. Every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. So please like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to all those guys' great shows, and pray for us that we all have a huge breakthrough. We hit 500, and now we're, I believe, up to 518 the last time I looked, subscribers on YouTube. So thank you all very much for that. Now we're trying to get to 1,000. I said 600 last time, but I think that's shooting low. We want to get to 1,000. So like and subscribe and share this video, share the channel with everyone that you know, and get them to like and subscribe so that we can hit that 1,000 subscriber mark and open up a whole host of other possibilities now that we're up over 500. All right. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming, shall we? And one thing that I think, going back to the Ilhan Omar for a second, and just the American Pravda as a whole, we're seeing a lot of persecution of Christians around the world. And just last week, 200 Christians were slaughtered in Nigeria by Islamic jihadists. Let's take a look at this real quick. Hundreds of Christians killed by jihadists in Nigeria. Jihadists massacred 200 Christians in Nigeria last week after storming a predominantly Catholic farming community and setting fire to homes, according to multiple reports. And a lot of these people were slaughtered at night in their sleep. And just imagine if Israel had gone into Gaza or gone into Iran or any other Muslim country and slaughtered 200 Muslims in their sleep. What do you think the media American Pravda reaction would be? The coverage would be wall to wall, 24/7. But 200 Christians slaughtered, burned alive by jihadis. Crickets. I only came across this story by accident. It just happened to be on the Daily Wire. And then after reading it, there are a couple of Christian news outlets that are reporting it. But even the Christian news outlets that I frequent, I haven't seen it there. There is a pattern of Christian genocide, and this is actual genocide across the Middle East and North Africa. And it gets no coverage. It gets no coverage. This happened, I believe, between June 13th and 14th. And these, what's called Fulani jihadists, these Fulani jihadists, they surrounded the village and opened fire and then burned families alive, like I said. And one of the survivors says, "My wife and children were burned into ashes beyond recognition." Crickets from the American Pravda. Crickets from pretty much everybody. And I don't blame a lot of the church for not talking about this, because it hasn't been widely reported. And like I said, I came across this story by accident. And it's a pattern. This Christian persecution and murder of these Christians is part of a pattern. Since 2009, over 52,000 Christians have been murdered in Nigeria alone. Just in Nigeria. In Kenya, back in 2013, I remember this story very well. Al-Shabaab terrorists attacked the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, and they held Christians hostage, or they held diners hostage, and asked them to recite the Shahada, which is a Muslim prayer, or somehow or other prove that they were Muslim. And if they couldn't, they were executed. And about 62 people died in that massacre. And some of them were Christians who not only didn't recite the Shahada, but proclaimed their Christianity. And they were, of course, immediately executed. And they also executed people who may have been Muslim, but couldn't somehow prove it for whatever reason. These people are animals. In 2022, there were over 5,000 killed. In 2023. Just in the first few months of the year, over 1,000 were killed. And you got these Fulani jihadists, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, other ISIS-affiliated groups. These people are systematically slaughtering Christians. In Libya in 2025, ISIS executed 30 Ethiopian Christians, and there's video of that. I remember that too. In 2017, a suicide bomber killed 45 worshipers during a Palm Sunday mass. In Iraq and Syria, entire villages of Christians just wiped out by ISIS. It's one of the things that if this were happening, like I said, if this were happening to Muslims, if Israel was going around and slaughtering Muslims like this, it would be all over the news all the time, 24/7. But we got no headlines from the China News Network, The UN isn't calling any emergency sessions. The celebrities, the lefty Holly weird celebrities, silent, because the killers are Islamic extremists. And for whatever reason, it's okay. It's okay to them. But if the script was flipped, it'd be a completely different story, and we know this. This is a religious cleansing. This fits the definition of genocide. Unlike what's happening between Israel and Gaza. I mean, Israel is doing everything they can to avoid civilian casualties, despite Hamas using human shields and setting up bases in schools and hospitals. This is tragic. So when we hear these stories, we can't just shrug and look away. We have to speak up and pray for these people who are dealing with this stuff. And if you can, support organizations that are helping these Christians, these persecuted Christians. There's Samaritan's Purse, which we support. There's Voice of the Martyrs, which is another great group. And there are others. There are others out there. So if you have the means, I highly recommend that you try to support them in any way you can. All right. Yeah, let's get into this. As I said in the opening, it's June 19th, which is now a federal holiday called Juneteenth, and it's a ridiculous holiday. It's a ridiculous federal holiday. It should not be a federal holiday. Juneteenth is an example of weaponizing history under the guise of honoring it. Juneteenth is now, like I said, a federal holiday that is completely political in nature. It has nothing to do with patriotism and pretty much nothing to do with history either, because the history of Juneteenth is, well, I'm going to get into it, and I'd like to know if you actually knew any of what we're about to talk about, because some of this I knew, and then some of this I actually learned as I was researching this segment. Now, on June 19th, Union General by the name of Gordon Granger, June 19th, 1865, arrived in Galveston, Texas. And he announced that slavery was over. And this is, of course, 2.5 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And the story goes that Texas had been out of reach for federal enforcement. And so the message came late, 2.5 years late, or 1.5 years late. It is, well, 2.5 years late, excuse me. It's a significant moment, but it is not when slavery ended. Not by a long shot. And despite all of their protestations, the people who support this, It's not the foundation of American freedom. Again, not by a long shot. Emancipation of the slaves happened or began on New Year's Day in 1863 when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And there was a heavy price paid for the ending of slavery. And June 19th, Juneteenth was, I guess you could say, like the last gasp, the final echo of that emancipation. But it wasn't, that wasn't it. And a lot of people will say that the people in Texas and West didn't know that that emancipation had taken place, didn't know that he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Historical evidence clearly shows that it was published widely in Texas newspapers as early as February 2nd, 1863, a month later. And there's also evidence that the news traveled far and wide among the slave population. They heard it through the grapevine, so to speak. So to suggest that it took 2.5 years for everyone in Texas to realize that the slaves had been freed is just utter nonsense. Nonsense. And so the left pushed for this to be a federal holiday, not because of some sort of celebration of freedom, but to create a rival origin story for this nation, a lot like the June the 1619 project that failed miserably. They tried to suggest that was the true birth of this nation, but they downplay July 4th, which is coming up, as hypocritical, and claim that June 19th is the real Independence Day. It's just another way for them to divide Americans by race, grievance, and victimhood. They created this Juneteenth as a federal holiday, but Lincoln's birthday is just ignored. Constitution Day, ignored. Both of which I would say are more important days to commemorate than Juneteenth, because as we just discussed, everybody knew. It wasn't news by the time he arrived in Galveston. It was old news. Now, Juneteenth used to be a great grassroots tradition among Black Americans, but it still respected the country. Now it's politicized and hijacked by the wokies, and it's just become a sideshow, basically. And it's too bad, because what once was a sincere celebration of freedom is now a tool of the woke left and identity politics, and a complete revision of historical facts. Juneteenth, we can understand Juneteenth's historical significance, but we don't have to deal with the cultural manipulation that we're subjected to because of this. Freedom is absolutely 100% worth celebrating. But it's being used to undermine the Constitution and what the founding fathers had in mind when they created this country. It's a symbolic moment. It's got significance, but it's not something that should be a federal holiday. Because if we're going to do that, then why not have D-Day be a federal holiday? I would much rather have that be a federal holiday than Juneteenth. The surrender of Appomattox, why not that? Ronald Reagan's tear down this wall speech, why not? Well, because they don't fit the narrative. All right. I don't have a whole lot of time left, and I really want to get to this and a few other things. There was this is just absolutely insane. Yeah, here we go. There was a family-friendly Pride event that took place in Dallas. And first of all, there's no such thing as a family-friendly Pride event. But what happens when someone infiltrates these family-friendly, quote-unquote, Pride events and exposes what really goes on? And we've seen this time and again, and the left will say that this is not what is really going on, but I want to take a look at something that the Texas Family Project published a few days ago. And you tell me if this is family friendly. All right, that's enough. You can go on Texas Family Project or Sarah Gonzalez's Twitter account and take a look at the rest of that if you want. But there is nothing family friendly about that. Nothing. There were kids in those audiences where those drag queens were dancing all provocatively. It's sick, twisted. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that one. It was the Texas Family Project has been infiltrating these things for a couple of years now, at least a couple of years. And it's insane. Drag shows for kids, furries in public schools, like I talked about with the litter boxes and all that. If a conservative group even suggested that they were going to do something even close to that inappropriate with children, again, it would be a national story. It would be a scandal. But because it's a pride event, nothing. And there's evidence of that all over the place, because whenever a conservative or a Republican gets busted doing something inappropriate with children, the left goes nuts. And they say, see, you guys are just as perverted as we are. But the difference is they celebrate their perversion. When that happens, when a conservative or Republican gets busted doing something like that, we are the first ones to condemn it. We are the first ones to say they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But they celebrate it. This is something that we need to pay attention to, because just because of the SCOTUS ruling, like I said, this fight is not over. This fight is not over. We need to get off the sidelines. We need to get into the fray, because if we don't draw the line, they are going to continue to push it. And if we let them push it, who knows? Well, we have an idea where it's going to where they want it to go, and we can talk about that another time because there's something else I want to get into. But we got to protect the kids. Push back on this utter nonsense, and never ever apologize for standing on the truth. And the truth is that this is sick and twisted and must be eliminated. All right. I got a little bit of time left, and I really, really wanted to get into this because this is just one of the absolute most asinine things I have ever heard in my life. And I am talking about Whoopi Goldberg and The View. And she said something that let's just play it.
And it's slow.
But let's just remember too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Okay. That was one incident that was obviously illegal. What Alyssa Farah Griffin is talking about is it's the law of the land over there, that if you're found out to be a homosexual, they will throw you off a building, and that's that. You do that in this country and you will be arrested and prosecuted, and depending on the state, put to death. Come on, this is ridiculous.
But where the Iranian regime is today,
I'm sorry, they
nothing
used to
compared to the
just
United
keep hanging black people. So
It is not even the same. I couldn't step foot during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year 2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit into Toronto.
Listen, I'm sorry.
Well, they wear like a no, I can't have my hair showing. I can't wear a skirt. I can't have my arms out.
I'm telling you, as a
I literally said it was up to the Iranian people.
Yes,
it is up to them.
And that's why I am saying that it is the same. Murdering someone for their difference is not good. Whoever does it, it's not good. So that's why I said you weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
This is one of the rare occasions where Alyssa Farah Griffin actually is making sense on this panel. And she correctly states that living in Iran is very different than living in the United States in 2025. And Whoopi Goldberg, and you should take a look at the rest of that clip because it's insane. And we're running out of time, but Whoopi Goldberg actually said, "Not if you're black." She is a raving lunatic. And I think she probably believes that as she's sitting up there on TV worth $60 million. Any women in Iran worth $60 million on TV? I don't think so. Just absolutely insane. All right, y'all. That's all I got for you this time. I will keep trying to make each episode better than the last one. If any of what I said hit home for you, please take a second to like and subscribe and share these videos with everyone that you know. Because I'm not just here to opine or bloviate. I'm here to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope for our future generations. And if you want some cool gear, head over to missionreadymen.com. Click Shop 7 Armors and check out all the great gear that we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.